You picked the wrong black woman to harass today. Admiral Evelyn Hayes's voice remains steady as Officer Miller twists her arm behind her back. Metal cuffs snap around her wrist too tight, drawing blood. Talking back to an officer, Captain Davis looms over her. That's how people like you end up with problems. Hayes memorizes his badge number, his name tag, the scar above his right eyebrow. Check her for weapons, Davis commands. Miller jabs her ribs during the search, finds her wallet, keys, phone. He tosses them into an evidence bag. Something funny, Davis demands when he notices her calm expression. Hayes says nothing. They miss the naval communications device hidden in her jacket lining. Get her in the car, Davis barks. A night in holding should fix that attitude. They shove her head down, forcing her into the cruiser. They have no idea who they've just arrested. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead. The processing room smells of sweat and stale coffee. Hayes stands perfectly still for her mugshot. The camera clicks. Name. The booking officer doesn't look up from his computer. Evelyn Hayes. Address. She provides her Cedar Street address. The officer pauses, eyes narrowing. That's in Redwood Terrace. His tone changes, recognizing the predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. Hayes presses her thumb against the fingerprint scanner. Black ink stains her skin. Behind her, Officers Davis and Miller laugh by the water cooler. Another one from that neighborhood, thinking she's special, Miller says, voice carrying deliberately, acting like the checkpoint doesn't apply to her. Had to put her in her place, Davis replies. These people need to learn. Hayes memorizes every word, every inflection, every face watching her processing. Phone call. She asks the booking officer. He points to the wall phone. One call. Make it count. Hayes dials a number from memory. Not her lawyer, not family. Command Center Naval Operations, answers a crisp voice. Authorization code. Sierra November 327. Hayes speaks clearly. Initiating protocol oversight, Bravo. Location transmitting. A moment of silence. Confirmed. Admiral Hayes. Response team deploying. Timeline 37 minutes. Hayes hangs up as Mayor Richard Sterling storms into the station. His expensive suit and yacht club ring gleam under the harsh lights. Another troublemaker? Sterling demands, looking through the glass at Hayes. Davis nods. Just processing her now, sir. Good. Sterling says, these checkpoint objectors need consequences. The program is too important. Hayes is escorted to a holding cell. The door clangs shut. She sits on the metal bench, back straight, face composed. The clock on the wall reads 10:23 p.m. In exactly 37 minutes, everything will change. 2 hours earlier, twilight paints the sky purple over Redwood Terrace. Admiral Evelyn Hayes drives her modest sedan through familiar streets. The neighborhood transitions from predominantly Hispanic to the wealthier, whiter suburbs of Oak Creek. Blue lights flash ahead. Police cruisers block the road. A checkpoint. Hayes slows, window already rolling down. She's done nothing wrong. This should take seconds. Officer Miller approaches, flashlight beams sweeping across her face, license and registration. Hayes reaches slowly for her glove compartment. May I ask what this checkpoint is for, officer? Miller stiffens. Just routine ID now? She hands over her driver's license. Miller studies it, flashlight lingering on her address. Redwood Terrace resident, he says into his radio, requesting additional verification. Hayes notices his emphasis on her neighborhood. Is there a problem with my identification, officer? Wait here. Miller walks back to the cruiser, license in hand. Hayes watches through her rear-view mirror. Miller shows her license to another officer. They both look at her car, laughing. Captain Davis emerges from the command vehicle. Miller points at Hayes's car. Davis nods, approaching with deliberate slowness. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." His tone carries no respect with the formality. "May I ask why? My license is valid." "Step out now." Davis's hand rests on his holster. "We're implementing enhanced search protocol. Hayes knows her rights. Enhanced search requires reasonable suspicion of criminal activity." "What's your suspicion, Captain?" Davis's face hardens. Out of the car, Hayes complies, movements deliberate. "I'd like to note that this appears to be selective enforcement." "We decide what's selective," Davis says. "Hands on the hood." "I decline consent to search my vehicle without probable cause," Hayes states calmly. Terry v. Ohio and Arizona v. Gant established clear guidelines for look at the lawyer here. Miller mocks moving closer. Thinks she knows the law. Hayes stands her ground. "I'm familiar with my Fourth Amendment rights." Davis steps closer. "Your kind always want to make things difficult." "My kind?" Hayes raises an eyebrow. "Troublemakers," Davis clarifies, but his meaning hangs transparent in the air. Other drivers watch from their cars. Some record with phones. Davis notices, gesturing to another officer. "Clear these vehicles through. No recordings." Hayes observes Officer Chen approaching cars, making people put phones away. She commits each face to memory, each badge number, each license plate. "Last chance," Davis says. "Consent to search or face obstruction charges." "I respectfully decline and request a supervisor," Hayes says. Her voice remains steady, professional. "I am the supervisor," Davis signals to Miller. "Detain her." Miller grabs Hayes's arm, twisting it behind her back. The pain shoots through her shoulder. "Stop resisting," Miller shouts, though she isn't resisting. "I'm not resisting," Hayes says clearly, aware of creating an audio record. "I'm complying under protest." Davis steps closer. "You don't tell us how to do our jobs." Hayes notices Miller's body camera. The red recording light blinks off. "Your body camera appears to be malfunctioning, Officer Miller," she notes. "Mind your own business." Miller tightens his grip. Hayes's naval training kicks in. She could disable both officers in seconds. But that's not why she's here. Not tonight's mission. "I'll be filing a formal complaint," she says instead. Davis laughs. "Good luck with that. Mayor Sterling personally oversees checkpoint operations. Your complaint goes straight to his trash can." Hayes's watch presses against her wrist. The military device captures every word, every admission. Evidence gathering continues. "Search the car," Davis orders another officer. "Sir, without a warrant," Hayes begins. "We have checkpoint authority under City Ordinance 42B. Davis interrupts. "Signed by the council last month." Hayes knows the ordinance, knows its constitutional flaws, knows exactly who pushed it through. "Find anything?" Davis calls to the officer searching her car. "Clean, sir." Davis seems disappointed. "Check under the seats. These Redwood people always hiding something." Hayes's fingers discreetly press a button on her watch. The GPS tracker activates. Naval systems now monitor her location in real time. "Nothing, sir," the officer reports. Davis turns back to Hayes. "Well, you're still interfering with a lawful checkpoint. That's obstruction. Citing constitutional protections is not obstruction," Hayes counters, and now arguing with an officer. Davis nods to Miller. "Cuff her." The metal cuffs bite into her wrists. Miller secures them too tight deliberately. "Evelyn Hayes, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and resisting a lawful checkpoint inspection." Davis recites satisfaction in his voice. Hayes notices a young man in a nearby car recording discreetly. Their eyes meet briefly. Hayes gives an imperceptible nod. "You have the right to remain silent," Davis continues. "I'm aware of my Miranda rights. Captain Hayes interrupts. I assume you're transporting me to the Oak Creek station. Davis pauses, thrown by her composure. That's right. I'll need my phone call when we arrive. You'll get what we decide to give you, Miller says, shoving her toward the cruiser. As they lead her away, Hayes glances at the checkpoint. Officer Chen turns away another Redwood Terrace resident for additional screening. 3 cars with white drivers pass through without stopping. Pattern established, evidence accumulating. Miller pushes her head down, forcing her into the back seat. Officer Miller, badge number 384 That use of force is unnecessary and excessive, Hayes states for her watch's recording. Shut up, Miller snaps, slamming the door. Through the window, Hayes watches Davis speaking with another officer. He gestures toward Redwood Terrace. Laughs. The cruiser pulls away from the checkpoint. Hayes sits calmly in the back, mentally reviewing the naval protocol. She's just activated. The situation is proceeding exactly as anticipated. The interrogation room at Oak Creek Station smells of burnt coffee and disinfectant. A single overhead light casts harsh shadows. The metal table is bolted to the floor. Hayes sits straight back in the uncomfortable chair. Her handcuffs remain tight. 2 hours have passed since her arrest. The door opens. Captain Davis enters carrying a thin folder and Hayes's confiscated belongings. He drops them on the table, comfortable. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Hayes doesn't respond. The less she says, the more they reveal. Davis opens the folder. Evelyn Hayes, Redwood Terrace address, no prior. He looks up. First time being educated about checkpoint compliance. I'd like to speak with an attorney. Soon enough, Davis circles the table. We're just having a conversation first. I invoke my right to counsel. Hayes's voice remains level, precise. Davis ignores her. See, we have a problem in this town. People who don't respect authority. People who think rules don't apply to them. He leans against the wall, studying her. Checkpoints keep Oak Creek safe. Some folks don't like being checked. Those folks usually have something to hide. Hayes remains silent. Her military training included resistance to interrogation techniques. Davis's amateur intimidation tactics wouldn't break a first-year midshipman. Nothing to say. Davis flips through her wallet. Interesting ID you've got here. He pulls out her military ID, studies it, snorts. Navy Admiral, 4 stars. He tosses it on the table. Nice fake, adding impersonating military personnel to your charges. Hayes watches him carefully. That identification is authentic, right? Davis laughs, and I'm the Secretary of the Navy. His phone buzzes. He checks the screen, nods slightly. Our concerned citizen is here, Davis says, moving to the door. Someone wants to meet the latest checkpoint troublemaker. Hayes's photographic memory catalogs every procedural violation, every failed Miranda compliance, every civil rights infringement. Davis leaves. Through the thin walls, Hayes hears a new voice, authoritative, impatient, another one from that neighborhood. The voice must belong to Mayor Sterling. Yes, sir, Davis responds. Gave us the usual constitutional speech. Had a fake military ID, too. Military? Sterling sounds interested. What branch? Navy claims to be an admiral. Davis's laugh carries through the wall. Get what you need and process her. Sterling says, make an example. These checkpoint resistors are undermining the whole program. Hayes notices the one-way glass, feels Sterling watching from the other side. The door opens again. Davis returns with Officer Miller. Let's try again. Davis slaps a form on the table. Sign this confession to obstruction. Take a misdemeanor charge and you'll be out by morning. Hayes studies the document without touching it. I'll need my attorney present before signing anything. Miller steps forward. Captain asked you nicely, and I respectfully declined. Hayes replies. Davis nods to Miller, who moves behind Hayes's chair. His presence meant to intimidate. You people from Redwood Terrace think you're special. Davis says think the rules don't apply. But Mayor Sterling's checkpoint program has cut crime in Oak Creek by 30%. By targeting specific neighborhoods, Hayes asks. Davis's expression hardens. By enforcing the law where it needs enforcing. Selective enforcement isn't legal enforcement, Hayes says. Miller places heavy hands on her shoulders. You should listen to the captain. Hayes doesn't react to the physical intimidation. I believe this interview is over until my counsel arrives. Davis collects her belongings, intentionally dropping her military ID on the floor. He steps on it as he walks around the table. This little military costume doesn't impress me. He sneers, picking up the ID, though I admire the attention to detail. 4 stars. Ambitious fake. He tosses the ID back on the table. Miller increases pressure on Hayes's shoulders. We've got all night, Davis says. Plenty of time for you to reconsider that signature. A sharp knock interrupts. The door opens immediately. Detective Marcus Thorne stands in the doorway. His expression shifts from professional to confused as he takes in the scene. Captain? Thorne says carefully. A moment outside. Davis hesitates, then nods to Miller. Watch her. The door closes behind them. Through the wall, Hayes hears urgent whispers. The conversation grows heated. Someone knocks urgently on the interrogation room door. The door opens. Detective Thorne enters, followed by a visibly agitated Captain Davis. Thorne, mid-30s with observant eyes, carries himself differently than the other officers. His badge hangs from a chain around his neck. His suit, while department issue, fits properly. Officer Miller, you're needed at the front desk, Thorne says. Miller looks to Davis, who nods reluctantly. Miller leaves, closing the door firmly behind him. Thorne approaches the table. He picks up Hayes's military ID, examining it closely. Captain, this ID has proper security features, Thorne says. The holographic seal, microprinting, UV watermarks, all authentic military issue. Davis scoffs. It's a good fake. No, sir. Thorne places the ID gently on the table. I served before joining the department. This is genuine. Davis's confidence wavers momentarily. So, she stole a military ID. Add it to the charges. Hayes watches the dynamic between them. Thorne represents something rare. Integrity within a corrupted system. Ma'am. Thorne addresses Hayes directly. May I ask your name and rank? Admiral Evelyn Hayes, United States Navy. Thorne straightens instinctively. Military bearing doesn't fade with time. And what brings you to Oak Creek, Admiral? Thorne asks. Before Hayes can answer, Davis interrupts. Detective, she's being processed for obstruction and checkpoint evasion. Her occupation is irrelevant. Sir, if she's active military, we have jurisdictional protocols to follow, Thorne counters. Davis steps closer to Thorne. I'm handling this case. Captain, department policy requires verification of military credentials. Thorne persists. Section 18 of our procedural manual specifically states. I know the manual, Davis snaps. Then you know we're already in violation of proper procedure. Thorne doesn't back down. No attorney present despite request. Continued questioning after Wright's invocation. Extended detention without processing. Davis's jaw tightens. Detective, remember your place? My place is ensuring department procedures are followed, Thorne replies evenly. He turns back to Hayes's ID, examining the rank insignia. His eyes widen. Sir, Thorne whispers, these are 4 stars. So 4 stars is the highest rank in the Navy. Thorne looks at Hayes with new understanding. There are only a handful in the entire military. Davis's confidence cracks further. It's still a fake. The interrogation room door swings open. Mayor Sterling enters without knocking. his tailored suit and signet ring project authority and wealth. "Captain, what's the delay?" Sterling demands. "I thought this was routine processing." His eyes fall on Hayes. He assesses her with practiced political calculation. "Mayor Sterling." Thorne says, "We have a situation. This woman appears to be a high-ranking military officer." Sterling scoffs. "Based on what?" "Military identification consistent with a Navy admiral." Thorne explains. "We need to verify through proper channels before proceeding." "Detective, isn't it?" Sterling checks Thorne's nameplate. "Your concern for procedure is noted. Now let the captain handle this." Thorne stands his ground. "Sir, with respect, if we've detained a military admiral improperly, the department faces serious repercussions. If," Sterling emphasizes, "a remarkably big if." He turns to Davis. "Captain, handle the paperwork and process her. Detective Thorne, you're needed elsewhere." "Sir," Thorne protests. "Standard protocol requires. Standard protocol is what I say it is." Sterling interrupts. "The checkpoint program operates under special city ordinance." "My ordinance." Hayes watches Thorne carefully. She sees the moment his professional ethics confront political reality. "Mayor," Thorne says carefully, "may I at least verify her identity through military channels? A simple phone call." Sterling studies. Thorne: "You're new to Oak Creek, aren't you, Detective?" "Transferred 8 months ago, sir." "Then let me explain how things work here." Sterling steps closer. "The checkpoint program is essential to Oak Creek safety and property values. Occasional complaints are expected. They're handled quietly and quickly." "By violating rights?" Thorne asks. Sterling's smile turns cold. "By maintaining order." "Don't overthink your role, Detective." The phone on the wall suddenly rings. All three turn toward it. Davis answers. "Captain Davis." He listens, frowning. "What kind of call?" His expression shifts from annoyance to confusion. "From where?" Davis's face pales slightly. He hangs up. "What is it?" Sterling demands. "Front desk has received calls asking about an Admiral Hayes," Davis says slowly. "From whom?" Sterling asks. Davis swallows. "The Pentagon." The room falls silent. Sterling and Davis exchange glances. Probably her friends playing games. Sterling dismisses. "Captain, finish processing. And sir?" Davis interrupts. "They mentioned her by name and rank. They knew she was here." Sterling turns to Hayes, reassessing. Thorne's eyes widen at the 4 stars on her ID card. "Sir, do you realize who we've arrested?" Sterling silences him with a gesture. "Captain, verify this properly now." Davis exits quickly. Sterling studies Hayes with new caution. "If you are military," Sterling says, "you should understand the importance of security checkpoints." "I understand constitutional rights," Hayes replies, "and selective enforcement." Sterling's political smile returns. "Admiral, if that's what you are, surely we can resolve this misunderstanding amicably." The phone rings again. Davis answers from outside. His voice carries through the door. "Yes, sir." "Yes, she's here." "No, sir." "I understand, sir." Sterling watches the door with growing concern. Davis returns, visibly shaken. "That was Commander Reynolds from the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. They've confirmed her identity." "Excellent." Sterling recovers quickly. "Then release the Admiral immediately with our apologies for the misunderstanding." "There's more," Davis says quietly. "They're sending representatives here now." Sterling's political mask slips. "What representatives?" "A military investigation unit. Davis says they specifically mentioned your checkpoint program, sir." Sterling turns to Hayes, understanding dawn in his eyes. "This wasn't a coincidence. He realizes your presence at the checkpoint." Hayes meets his gaze steadily. The station's front desk phone begins to ring. The persistent ringing echoes through the station. Multiple lines now. phones lighting up across desks. Sterling moves to the interrogation room door, closing it firmly. His political composure cracks further. "What exactly is happening here?" he demands. Hayes remains silent. Her mission doesn't require explanation. Davis's radio crackles. "Captain, we have multiple incoming calls. Pentagon, DOJ's, governor's office. Handle it." Sterling snaps. "Sir," Davis responds. "They're specifically asking about Admiral Hayes." Thorne watches this exchange with growing awareness. He moves closer to Hayes. "Would you like those handcuffs removed, Admiral?" he asks quietly. Sterling glares at him. Detectives step back. "Sir, she's been confirmed as a military admiral," Thorne argues. "Continuing to detain her is my decision." Sterling interrupts. He points at Hayes. "Whatever game you're playing ends now." Hayes finally speaks. "This isn't a game, Mayor. It's an investigation." "Investigation?" Sterling laughs. But uncertainty edges his voice into what? "Systematic civil rights violations through discriminatory checkpoint practices," Hayes states. "Targeting minority neighborhoods, violating Fourth Amendment protections, implementing quotas based on race and district." Sterling's face hardens. "Ridiculous accusations. Documented accusations," Hayes corrects. Davis's radio crackles again. "Captain, military vehicles approaching the station." Sterling's political calculation visibly shifts to self-preservation. He turns to Davis. "Release her now. Claim miscommunication. Blame the officers who made the arrest." Davis hesitates. "Sir, Miller followed your checkpoint protocols." "Exactly. Then blame the protocols," Sterling hisses. "Just contain this." Thorne steps forward, removing a small key from his pocket. He unlocks Hayes's handcuffs. "My apologies, Admiral," he says formally. Sterling watches this with growing alarm. "Detective, prepare the necessary paperwork for the Admiral's immediate release." Thorne nods, but makes no move to leave. "Now, Detective," Sterling insists. "In a moment, sir." Thorne turns to Hayes. "Admiral, may I ask what happens next?" Hayes rubs her wrists where the cuffs bit into her skin. "Justice happens next, Detective Thorne." Sterling laughs nervously. A simple misunderstanding doesn't require such dramatics. 8 months of documented civil rights violations isn't a misunderstanding, Hayes replies. Thorne looks between them. 8 months? Hayes nods. The Pentagon has been monitoring Oak Creek's checkpoint program since its implementation, gathering evidence, building a case. She checks her watch, and now that case is complete. Davis's radio crackles once more. "Captain, 3 black SUVs have entered the parking lot. Military personnel disembarking. Sterling moves to the door. I need to make some calls. Your calls won't help." Mayor Hayes says, "This investigation has federal oversight." Sterling's hand freezes on the door knob. The political mask shatters completely. Thorne steps closer to Hayes. He discreetly slides a USB drive across the table. "Internal Affairs has been looking into the checkpoint program," he whispers. "But we kept hitting roadblocks. Administrative obstruction, evidence of direct interference?" Hayes asks quietly. Thorne nods. "Everything I could gather. Checkpoint locations, arrest demographics, internal communications." "It's time, Admiral," he whispers. The interrogation room door swings open. A naval officer in full dress uniform enters, followed by 2 MPs. The Silver Eagle insignia identifies him as Commander Reynolds. Commander Reynolds surveys the room, his gaze stopping on Hayes. "Admiral Hayes." He salutes crisply. "Commander." Hayes returns the salute. "Thank you for the prompt response." "Of course, ma'am." Reynolds turns to the others. "I'm Commander Reynolds, Naval Investigative Services. These are my associates." Sterling steps forward, political smile reinstated. "Mayor Richard Sterling, Oak Creek City Council. This has been an unfortunate misunderstanding." Sir, Reynolds interrupts. Please remain in the station. My team will have questions for you shortly. Sterling's smile falters. Questions? I assure you I had no knowledge of the Admiral's improper detention. Noted, Reynolds says without inflection. He turns to Davis. Captain, secure this room for the Admiral's use. We'll need your main conference room for our team. Davis hesitates. Commander, this is a police station. You don't have jurisdiction. I have direct authorization from the Secretary of Defense. Reynolds cuts him off. Your cooperation is not optional. The station fills with activity. Military personnel set up equipment in the conference room. Computer specialists access the station's systems. Evidence collection teams secure records. Sterling watches with growing alarm. This response seems excessive for a simple detention issue. Hayes stands, straightening her civilian clothes. This isn't about my detention, Mayor. It's about what my detention represents. She turns to Commander Reynolds. Status report. Teams deployed as ordered, Admiral. Evidence preservation protocols in effect. Pentagon liaison briefing the governor now. Sterling attempts to leave. 2 MPs politely but firmly direct him back. This is outrageous, he protests. I have rights, yes. Hayes agrees. Everyone does. That's precisely the point. Hayes and Reynolds moved to the conference room, now transformed into a command center. Digital displays show checkpoint locations throughout Oak Creek, all strategically positioned between Redwood Terrace and wealthy neighborhoods. Thorne follows, carrying case files. Admiral, I've brought the internal documentation you requested. Thank you, Detective. Hayes says, your assistance is invaluable. Sterling and Davis are escorted in, directed to seats away from each other. Miller joins them, confusion evident on his face. Hayes stands at the head of the table. The room falls silent. Gentlemen, she begins. 8 months ago, the Pentagon received multiple complaints about a police checkpoint program targeting minority neighborhoods in Oak Creek. Initial review suggested Fourth Amendment violations. Further investigation revealed something more disturbing. She activates the main display. A map appears showing checkpoint arrest statistics. Red dots cluster exclusively in minority neighborhoods. Selective enforcement. Hayes continues. Checkpoint stops resulting in searches. 87% minority drivers. Arrests from those stops. 92% minority citizens. Davis shifts uncomfortably. Crime statistics justify deployment. Traffic violations occur at equal rates across demographics. Hayes interrupts. Yet your checkpoint program produced these results. She changes the display. Internal police emails appear. Captain Davis, this is your message to officers dated April 15th. Focus on vehicles from Redwood Terrace. Higher yield for arrests. Davis pales. That's taken out of context. Context is provided by your arrest quotas, Hayes replies, displaying another document, specifically targeting Redwood Terrace residents. Sterling interrupts. Admiral, these operational details were handled by the police department. As mayor, I merely approved the program concept. Hayes turns to him. Is that so? She nods to Commander Reynolds, who displays a new document. Sterling's signature appears at the bottom of detailed checkpoint operating procedures. This directive specifies targeting specific neighborhoods. Hayes notes, your signature authorizes racial profiling. Mayor Sterling's political facade cracks completely. This is a witch hunt. This is accountability, Hayes corrects. She turns to Thorne. Detective, please share what you found during your internal investigation. Thorne steps forward. 8 months ago, I noticed troubling patterns in checkpoint arrests when I raised concerns through proper channels. I was reassigned. I continued documenting discrepancies. He opens his file. Checkpoint officers were instructed to use different standards based on driver's race and residence. Redwood Terrace vehicles received heightened scrutiny regardless of driving behavior. Davis interrupts. "That's not your body cam footage contradicts you," Captain Hayes says. She plays a video. Davis appears instructing officers before a checkpoint deployment. "Remember, Redwood cars get the full treatment. Make the stop stick." Sterling stands abruptly. "I need to contact my attorney." "You'll have that opportunity," Hayes assures him. After we complete this interview, she slides a folder across the table. "These are just from the last 8 months. Captain Davis's face drains of color as he opens the file. The investigation continues into the night. Military personnel process evidence. Technical teams analyze department servers. Legal advisors document violations. In a quiet corner of the conference room, Hayes finds Thorne reviewing files. "Detective," she says, joining him, "your assistance has been crucial." Thorne looks up, exhaustion etched on his face. "I should have done more sooner. You did what you could within a corrupt system," Hayes says. "That takes courage." Thorne closes the file. "When I transferred to Oak Creek, I had no idea. The checkpoint program was already established, presented as innovative community policing." "When did you realize the truth?" Hayes asks. Thorne hesitates, pain flashing across his features. 4 months ago, he finally says, "My cousin came to visit. He was stopped at a checkpoint, detained for hours, no charges, just intimidation. He stares at his hands, stares at his. He's a civil engineer, drives a nice car, but they only saw a Hispanic man in the wrong neighborhood." Hayes finishes. Thorne nods. "I filed complaints, used proper channels, evidence disappeared, witnesses changed statements. The system protected itself. That's why I'm here." Hayes says, "Sometimes the system needs external pressure to change." "Why you specifically?" Thorne asks. "Why did the Pentagon send a 4-star admiral for a local police investigation?" "Because some issues transcend jurisdiction," Hayes explains. "Civil rights violations impact national security, erode public trust, undermine the Constitution we're all sworn to protect." Thorne absorbs this. "What happens to the officers to Sterling?" "Justice," Hayes says, "simply due process. The same rights they denied others and the people they wrongfully arrested, the lives they damaged. Part of the remedy includes case reviews, expungements, compensation." Hayes meets his eyes. "Your cousin's case will be among them." Thorne wipes his eyes quickly. "This isn't just about today, is it, Admiral?" "No," she answers. "It's about every day before this and every day that comes after." Thorne straightens. Professional composure returning. "What's our next step?" "Evidence compilation," Hayes says. "Your testimony will be crucial before the federal grand jury." "I'm ready," Thorne affirms. For the first time since her arrest, Hayes smiles. "I know." Dawn breaks over Oak Creek Police Station. The parking lot fills with government vehicles. FBI agents join military investigators. After we complete this interview, she slides a folder across the table. "These are just from the last 8 months." Captain Davis's face drains of color as he opens the file. The investigation continues into the night. Military personnel process evidence. Technical teams analyze department servers. Legal advisors document violations. In a quiet corner of the conference room, Hayes finds Thorne reviewing files. "Detective," she says, joining him, "your assistance has been crucial." Thorne looks up, exhaustion etched on his face. "I should have done more sooner. You did what you could within a corrupt system," Hayes says. "That takes courage." Thorne closes the file. "When I transferred to Oak Creek, I had no idea. The checkpoint program was already established, presented as innovative community policing." "When did you realize the truth?" Hayes asks. Thorne hesitates, pain flashing across his features. 4 months ago, he finally says, "My cousin came to visit. He was stopped at a checkpoint, detained for hours, no charges, just intimidation." He stares at his hands, stares at his father. He's a civil engineer, drives a nice car. But they only saw a Hispanic man in the wrong neighborhood. Hayes finishes. Thorne nods. I filed complaints, used proper channels, evidence disappeared, witnesses changed statements. The system protected itself. That's why I'm here, Hayes says. Sometimes the system needs external pressure to change. Why you specifically? Thorne asks. Why did the Pentagon send a 4-star admiral for a local police investigation? Because some issues transcend jurisdiction, Hayes explains. Civil rights violations impact national security, erode public trust, undermine the Constitution we're all sworn to protect. Thorne absorbs this. What happens to the officers to sterling justice? Hayes says simply. Due process. The same rights they denied others, and the people they wrongfully arrested, the lives they damaged. Part of the remedy includes case reviews, expungements, compensation. Hayes meets his eyes. Your cousin's case will be among them. Thorne wipes his eyes quickly. This isn't just about today, is it, Admiral? No, she answers. It's about every day before this and every day that comes after. Thorne straightens. Professional composure returning. Sure. What's our next step? Evidence compilation, Hayes says. Your testimony will be crucial before the federal grand jury. I'm ready, Thorne affirms. For the first time since her arrest, Hayes smiles. I know. Dawn breaks over Oak Creek Police Station. The parking lot fills with government vehicles. FBI agents join military investigators. Justice Department attorneys arrive with subpoenas. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere shifts from investigation to prosecution. Evidence boards cover the walls. Computer screens display data analyses. Legal teams prepare documents. Captain Davis sits alone, separated from his officers. Sterling's attorney arrived hours ago, whispering urgent advice ignored by his client. Commander Reynolds enters with a new team. Admiral, the Secretary of Defense, sends his regards. The investigation has been elevated to Joint Task Force status. Hayes nods. Excellent. Let's proceed with the full briefing. The room fills with senior officials, military, federal, state. The governor's representative sits near the Attorney General's deputy. Hayes takes position at the head of the table. The room falls silent. Ladies and gentlemen, she begins, what started as a civil rights monitoring operation has revealed systematic constitutional violations and abuse of power. Today, I present comprehensive evidence in 3 categories: visual documentation, audio recordings, and written records. She activates the main display. First, visual evidence. Dash cam footage appears. A vehicle from Redwood Terrace stopped at a checkpoint. The driver, professional, polite, is ordered from the car without cause. Search conducted without consent. When he questions the legality, he's arrested for obstruction. This pattern repeats across hundreds of documented stops, Hayes explains. She shows split-screen footage. White drivers pass through checkpoints with cursory checks. Hispanic drivers from Redwood Terrace face extended detentions, searches, and frequent arrests. Checkpoint camera systems captured clear racial disparities in enforcement. Hayes continues, white drivers were stopped at 9% frequency, Hispanic drivers at 85%. Sterling interrupts. Selective editing can create false patterns. These are your department's unaltered recordings, Mayor, Hayes replies. Complete timestamps intact. She displays a heat map of checkpoint placements. Checkpoints were exclusively positioned to intercept residents leaving minority neighborhoods, particularly Redwood Terrace. Davis shifts uncomfortably. Strategic deployment based on traffic patterns was contradicted by your own traffic study. Hayes interrupts, displaying the document which recommended different locations entirely. She moves to a new screen. Second category, audio evidence. Hayes activates an audio file. Davis's voice fills the room. Mayor wants more arrests from Redwood. Make it happen. Officer Miller responds, even without cause, Davis, find cause. Broken tail light, failure to signal. Get them out of the car. You'll find something. Sterling stands. That recording could be anyone. Voice pattern analysis confirms Captain Davis and Officer Miller. Hayes replies, recorded during official briefings. She plays another recording. Sterling's voice now. The checkpoint program serves two purposes. Public safety is what we tell the press. Property values is why we're really doing it. Keep the element where it belongs. In Redwood, not in our neighborhoods. Sterling sinks back into his chair. My military watch recorded our entire interaction last night, Hayes explains, including unguarded comments when you thought I couldn't hear. The federal officials exchange glances. The evidence mounts beyond dispute. Finally, Hayes continues, documentary evidence. The screen displays internal emails, text messages, and official memoranda. Davis to officers use checkpoint quota system as discussed. Sterling wants numbers up in Redwood demographic. Department statistics appear. Arrest rates by race, search rates by neighborhood, conviction outcomes by demographic. The data reveals unmistakable discriminatory patterns. Hayes explains checkpoint stops led to arrests for Hispanic drivers at 8 times the rate of white drivers for identical violations. She displays arrest reports side by side. Same violation, different races, different outcomes. But the most damning evidence comes from the program's origin. Hayes says she reveals city planning documents, property developer communications with Sterling, financial records. Mayor Sterling received substantial contributions from developers looking to revitalize Redwood Terrace. Hayes explains their development strategy required displacing current residents. The documents tell the story. Checkpoint harassment designed to pressure Redwood residents to leave. Property values driven down. Developers positioned to purchase at depressed prices. Civil rights violations driven by financial motivation, Hayes concludes. Sterling's attorney whispers urgently in his ear. Sterling ignores him. This is fabricated, Sterling insists. A politically motivated attack. The evidence speaks for itself, Hayes replies. And now the final piece. She nods to Thorne, who connects his USB drive to the system. Detective Thorne conducted his own internal investigation, Hayes explains, documenting checkpoint operations from within. Thorne stands. I collected evidence of quotas targeting specific neighborhoods, documented systematic civil rights violations, recorded instructions to ignore constitutional protections. His files appear on screen. Officer performance reviews tied to Redwood Terrace arrest numbers, checkpoint schedules targeting Hispanic churches, community centers, and businesses. Most critically, Thorne continues, I discovered that complaints about checkpoint practices were systematically buried. He displays the evidence. Complaint forms marked resolved without investigation. Witness statements altered, video evidence deleted when residents attempted to use proper channels for redress, Thorne explains. The system was designed to silence them. The room falls silent as officials review the overwhelming evidence. This operation wasn't about my personal detention, Hayes explains. I volunteered to test the system directly after months of intelligence gathering. My experience matched exactly what our investigation predicted. She turns to Sterling. Your checkpoint program violated the Fourth Amendment, targeted citizens by race, obstructed justice when challenged. The Justice Department official stands. We've seen enough. This evidence supports federal civil rights charges. Sterling looks around desperately. This is a misunderstanding. The program had legitimate public safety goals. The evidence contradicts that claim, Hayes responds. Sterling attempts one last defense. Admiral Hayes intentionally provoked officers, created this situation. Entrapment. I simply drove through a public checkpoint, Hayes replies calmly. My rights were violated because of who I am and where I live. exactly like hundreds of other citizens. She displays the final document. This is the classified Pentagon investigation authorization signed by the Secretary of Defense, launched after multiple military personnel reported discriminatory treatment at your checkpoints. The reality of his situation finally hits Sterling. He turns to his attorney in panic. The investigation is complete, Hayes announces. Federal prosecutors will now determine specific charges. The Pentagon investigator connects the final laptop to the projector. This evidence goes back 4 years. FBI agents approach Davis Miller and other implicated officers. Justice Department officials surround Sterling. Richard Sterling, you're under federal investigation for civil rights violations, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice. The lead federal prosecutor announces. Sterling stands abruptly. I need to make a statement to the press. Control the narrative. He moves toward the door. Military police stand ready. Mayor Sterling attempts to leave through the back door where military police wait. 1 week later, Capitol Hill. A congressional hearing room fills with observers, press, and officials. Admiral Evelyn Hayes sits at the witness table in full dress uniform. 4 stars gleam on her shoulders. Medals and ribbons testify to decades of service. The committee chairperson calls the session to order. This hearing on civil rights enforcement in local policing will now begin. Admiral Hayes, thank you for your testimony today. Hayes adjusts her microphone. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. Please summarize the Pentagon's investigation into the Oak Creek checkpoint program. The chairperson requests. 8 months ago, the Department of Defense received multiple complaints from military personnel subjected to discriminatory treatment at police checkpoints in Oak Creek. Hayes begins. Initial investigation revealed a pattern of constitutional violations, specifically targeting minority neighborhoods. She presents the evidence methodically. The discriminatory checkpoint placements, the racial disparities in enforcement, the financial motivations behind the program. Our investigation confirms systematic Fourth Amendment violations. Hayes continues. Citizens were detained, searched, and arrested without probable cause. When they attempted to assert their rights, they faced increased charges. A committee member interrupts. Why did this require Pentagon involvement rather than Justice Department? The initial complaints came from military personnel, Hayes explains. However, we quickly discovered that civilians faced identical treatment. We coordinated with Justice Department officials to ensure comprehensive investigation. Hayes displays the checkpoint map. The program strategically isolated the predominantly Hispanic community of Redwood Terrace. Residents faced constant harassment when traveling to work, school, or shopping. The evidence unfolds on screen. Arrest statistics by race, search rates by neighborhood, conviction patterns showing clear discrimination. Most concerning, Hayes continues, was that the program operated with explicit city approval. Mayor Sterling personally directed police to target specific demographics. Another committee member leans forward, and the current status of those involved. Mayor Sterling faces federal civil rights charges, Hayes reports. Captain Davis and 6 officers have been indicted. The checkpoint program has been permanently terminated. She pauses, then adds, most importantly, all convictions stemming from unconstitutional checkpoints are under review for expungement. The chairperson nods. Admiral, your decision to personally test the checkpoint system was unconventional. What motivated this approach? Sometimes systems only reveal their true nature through direct experience. Hayes explains, as a Black woman and a military officer, I was uniquely positioned to document the disparity between how citizens should be treated and how they were actually treated. A supportive committee member speaks. I'd like to recognize Detective Marcus Thorne, whose internal investigation provided crucial evidence. Detective, please stand. Thorne rises from the audience. The room applauds his courage. Detective Thorne risked his career to document these violations. Hayes acknowledges his ethical commitment represents the best of law enforcement. The chairperson turns serious. What changes do you recommend to prevent similar abuses nationwide? First, independent oversight of checkpoint operations, Hayes suggests. Second, mandatory data collection on stops by demographic. Third, clear consequences for departments showing discriminatory patterns. She looks directly at the committee. Most importantly, we must recognize that constitutional rights aren't optional. They don't depend on race, neighborhood, or economic status. The hearing continues with questions and testimony. Hayes provides detailed responses, always returning to the core principle, equal protection under law. As the session concludes, the chairperson makes an announcement. Based on this investigation, we're introducing legislation establishing federal standards for checkpoint operations. The Fair Enforcement Act will require transparency, accountability, and constitutional compliance. Outside the hearing room, Hayes meets with Thorne. The committee was impressed with your evidence. She tells him, "The FBI has offered you a position with their Civil Rights Division." Thorne smiles. "I've accepted. Change sometimes requires working from the inside." "And your cousin?" Hayes asks. "His record has been expunged." Thorne confirms. "He's helping organize the class action lawsuit for other checkpoint victims." Hayes nods approvingly. "Justice works slowly, but it does work when good people insist upon it," Thorne adds. 2 months later, a community center in Redwood Terrace. Residents gather for a town hall meeting with their new police chief. Hayes, now in civilian clothes, sits quietly in the back. She watches as Thorne, no longer a detective, but a community liaison, facilitates dialogue between residents and police. The new chief announces reformed policies. Body cameras always activated. Stop data publicly available. Community oversight board with real authority. After the meeting, an elderly resident approaches Hayes. "You're the admiral, aren't you? The one who brought down those checkpoints." Hayes smiles. "I just helped expose the truth." "You did more than that," the woman says. "My nephew was arrested at one of those checkpoints. Lost his job because of it. Now his record's cleared and he's back at work. I'm glad to hear that." Hayes responds. "One thing I don't understand," the woman continues. "You're an admiral. You could have used your rank from the beginning. Why go through the arrest?" "Because most people can't use rank or privilege to protect their rights." Hayes explains, "The system should work equally for everyone, not just those with status." The woman nods thoughtfully. "My nephew wants to be a paralegal now. Says somebody needs to know the law to protect the community." "He's right," Hayes agrees. "Knowing your rights is the first step to defending them." Outside, Thorne waits to drive Hayes to the airport. Returning to the Pentagon, he asks. "Yes," Hayes confirms, "but our civil rights oversight won't end with Oak Creek." This case established a template for identifying similar patterns nationwide. "The checkpoint is gone," Thorne observes as they drive past its former location. But the work continues. Hayes looks out of the community families walking freely. Residents no longer afraid of arbitrary enforcement. "This is what security actually looks like," she says. "Not checkpoints and harassment, just people living their lives with dignity and equal protection under the law." The committee chairman gavels the session closed. This hearing is concluded, but our work has just begun. Admiral Hayes steps into the sunlight outside the Capitol building. 6 months later, Pentagon conference room. Admiral Hayes stands before a wall of monitors displaying checkpoint data from cities nationwide. Commander Reynolds enters with fresh reports. Implementation of the new oversight protocols is proceeding as scheduled. "Admiral, 19 departments have voluntarily reformed checkpoint practices and the resistors," Hayes asks. Justice Department has opened investigations into 11 jurisdictions, showing similar patterns to Oak Creek. Hayes studies the data. Red flags highlight familiar patterns. Checkpoints concentrated around minority neighborhoods, disparate enforcement statistics, complaint suppression. The Oak Creek model is proving effective, Reynolds notes, identifying indicators of systemic discrimination before they become entrenched. Hayes nods. And our military personnel reports down 65%. Reynolds confirms the warning system works. Service members report potential civil rights issues directly to our office now. Hayes's secure phone chimes. A text from Thorne. Sterling sentenced today. 6 years federal restitution ordered for checkpoint victims. Justice delayed but delivered. Her assistant enters. Admiral, your next appointment is here. A young Hispanic man in Marine Corps uniform enters. Sergeant Carlos Ramirez, recently detained at a checkpoint outside Camp Pendleton. Sergeant Hayes greets him. Thank you for reporting your experience. General Ramirez salutes crisply. I wasn't sure if it warranted attention until I heard about your Oak Creek operation. Every data point matters, Hayes assures him. Your report matches others from that jurisdiction. Ramirez straightens. What happens now, ma'am? Now, Hayes explains, we follow the evidence, document the pattern, ensure constitutional protections apply equally to everyone. She moves to the window, looking out at the Pentagon courtyard, where service members from all backgrounds serve a common mission. The uniform doesn't protect us from discrimination, Hayes tells Ramirez, but it does give us the responsibility to uphold the Constitution for ourselves and for every citizen. Ramirez nods in understanding. That's why I reported it, not just for me. Exactly. Hayes agrees. Systems only change when good people recognize injustice and take action. She returns to the data displays to the work that continues. No checkpoints, Hayes says. No double standards, just equal justice under law. The map of America glows on the screen before her. Each indicator represents work to be done, communities waiting for fairness, rights requiring protection. Admiral Hayes gets back to work. Did that story grab your attention? Hit that like button right now to support more hard-hitting justice thrillers like this one. Delivers powerful voice-only narratives that keep you engaged. Whether you're commuting, working out, or just relaxing, our signature storytelling style brings you into intense moments of injustice and the satisfying path to accountability. Subscribe to never miss our weekly uploads featuring gripping justice thrillers, stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges, powerful narratives with unexpected twists, premium voice-only content, perfect for multitasking. Turn on notifications so you'll know immediately when we drop our next story. Your support helps us create more content that matters. Justice speaks volumes.